My name is Claire Bennett, and I'm 30 years old. At my younger sister's wedding, my father stood in front of 200 guests, lifted a champagne glass, smiled like the proudest man in the room, and announced that he had prepared a special tribute to the daughter who had taught him exactly how not to live. Before I could even react, the giant screen behind the dance floor came to life. The first image was my divorce decree. The second was a screenshot of my nearly empty bank account from 3 years earlier. The third showed me carrying moving boxes out of my old apartment, while bright red words flashed across the screen above my head. Divorced, broke, failure. A heavy silence settled over the ballroom as everyone waited for someone to say something. No one did. My father laughed first. One table joined him, then another. Within seconds, the laughter spread through the room. My mother leaned toward the microphone, smiled, and said, "Now they know who she really is." I kept my hands folded tightly in my lap because if anyone had seen them trembling, it would have become one more joke for the evening. What none of them knew was that my sister had quietly warned me that morning to keep my phone fully charged. They didn't know the venue's production manager had already prepared a second encrypted video feed hidden behind the wedding slideshow. And they certainly didn't know that the silver clutch resting on my lap contained certified bank records, printed messages, and the access code to a video my father believed had been erased forever. Have you ever walked into a family celebration knowing there was a chance you would become the night's entertainment? My father clicked to the next slide, convinced I was about to break down and run. Instead, I opened a private group chat with 5 people, typed a single word, and held my thumb over the send button. Begin. The giant screen instantly went black. My father's smile vanished. A heartbeat later, the first account number appeared. Before I tell you what happened after that first account number flashed across the screen, let me know where you're listening from and what the weather is like today. Does it match your mood? Or has this story already changed it? I can't wait to see how far Claire's story reaches. Wherever you're listening from, I hope your day is peaceful, your skies are clear, and your heart is entirely your own. 6 hours earlier, I had arrived at the hotel with 1 suitcase, 1 garment bag, and a rule I had repeated to myself during the entire drive. I was there for my sister, not for our parents. Lily had asked me to come, even though I had skipped 3 Christmases, 2 anniversaries, and every family gathering where my father could turn an ordinary meal into a public trial. She never asked me to forgive anyone. She only said, "I want 1 picture from my wedding where both of us are standing together." That was enough. In the bridal suite, she hugged me so tightly it almost hurt. Then she checked the hallway before slipping a black access card into my hand. "Keep your phone charged," she whispered, "and don't react until you know exactly what he's doing." 2 weeks earlier, our father had asked everyone to send childhood photos for what he described as a sentimental wedding tribute. Lily became suspicious when he refused to let her see the finished presentation. The night before the rehearsal dinner, she opened his laptop while he was downstairs and found a folder labeled Claire Final Version. Inside were my divorce papers, an old screenshot of my bank account, photographs from the worst month of my life, and a graphic design to look like an award. She also discovered a second folder containing documents that had nothing to do with the wedding. Those files connected his private company to withdrawals from the trust our grandmother had created for Lily and me. Lily didn't confront him. Instead, she copied the folder, called me, and asked a single question. "Did you take $417,600 from the trust?" I nearly dropped my phone. For years, relatives had treated me as though I had blown through a secret inheritance after my divorce. My mother had repeated that story so confidently that, during the chaos of my marriage ending, even I started wondering whether I had somehow signed something without realizing it. I had never received that money. The next morning, I contacted Evelyn Shaw, the attorney who had drafted our grandmother's trust. Because I was a beneficiary, Evelyn requested certified account statements. The records revealed 19 transfers labeled Claire Creative Advance. Each transfer moved first into North Star Advisory, a consulting company owned by one of my father's closest friends, before being redirected into accounts tied to my father's brokerage investments and personal debts. My electronic signature appeared on 3 authorization forms, but the authentication logs showed those signatures had all been submitted from my father's office while I was living in another state. Evelyn advised me not to accuse him until the bank officially preserved every record. Meanwhile, Lily contacted Nina, the venue's production manager. Nina explained that the giant screen accepted 2 secure inputs: the presentation laptop on stage and a protected production laptop inside the control booth. Switching between them didn't require hacking anything. It only required authorization from the bride, a prepared backup feed, and one person willing to press the right button. Lily gave that authorization. Her fiancé, Marcus, agreed to preserve the wedding livestream recording. Evelyn prepared a timed evidence release for the trustees and the board of our family company. My Aunt Rebecca, our grandmother's sister and the trust's co-trustee, agreed to join the group chat but refused to take action until she saw certified proof. That was fair. I refused to hijack Lily's wedding simply because I suspected our father intended to humiliate me. We agreed on one condition: nothing would happen unless he used the screen to attack me first. If his tribute turned out to be harmless, the backup feed would never be shown. The evidence would go directly to the attorney in private, and the reception would continue as planned. Before the ceremony, my mother walked into the bridal suite carrying a jewelry box. Amanda kissed Lily, looked me up and down, and said, "Please don't bring your personal problems into your sister's day." Her warning sounded rehearsed. When I asked what our father planned to show, she straightened a ribbon on the table and answered with something that was honest precisely because she revealed so little. Lily caught my eye in the mirror. She had already placed the black access card beside my phone charger. During the ceremony, our father behaved perfectly. He smiled for photographs, welcomed Marcus's family, and even squeezed my shoulder as though we hadn't spent years avoiding each other. At dinner, he praised Lily's judgment and called marriage a partnership built on trust. Only 5 of us understood the cruelty behind those words. Then the dinner plates were cleared. He stood, tapped his champagne glass, and pointed toward the giant screen. "Before we cut the cake," he announced, "I have one special family tribute." Nina's name appeared in our group chat with a single message: "Backup feed ready." I slid my phone beneath my napkin and watched my father connect his laptop. The first slide displayed a photograph of Lily and me as little girls, holding hands in matching dresses. For 3 seconds, I thought our plan might never be needed. Then the photo shrank into one corner of the screen and a title slammed across it: "The Bennett family's 2 daughters. One bride, one warning." My father waited for the uneasy laughter before clicking to the next slide. A scanned copy of my divorce decree appeared beside a cartoon trophy, labeled "Shortest Happily Ever After." He described my marriage as an expensive experiment in poor judgment, and told Marcus to study my mistakes. Several guests laughed because he delivered the line like a polished public speaker. Others stared down at their plates. Whenever he sensed the room becoming uncomfortable, he sped up, using the rhythm of a stand-up routine to keep people from deciding whether they were watching a joke or an attack. The next slide showed me standing outside my old apartment with stacks of moving boxes around my feet. He had cropped out the friend who was helping me and added a bright red banner across the bottom: "Relocation Specialist, available after every bad decision." Then came the bank account screenshot. It was real, but it was 3 years old. Captured during the week my joint accounts were frozen in the middle of my divorce. The balance read $4,318. He enlarged the number until it filled the entire screen. "This," he said, is why we teach our children to listen to their parents. Laughter came from the table where two of his business partners were seated. My mother didn't laugh. Not yet. She watched me with the rigid expression of someone waiting for her cue. My father continued. He displayed a private text message I had sent Amanda during a panic-filled night after my divorce. I don't know how to start over. Please don't tell Dad. He read it aloud, paused for effect, then smiled. Of course, she eventually came to the right parent for help. The betrayal cut deeper than the insult. My mother had forwarded that message to him. He had saved it for years, waiting for an audience. I looked toward Lily. She had gone completely still, one hand wrapped tightly around Marcus's wrist. Marcus started to stand, but Lily stopped him with the slightest shake of her head. She remembered the condition we had agreed on. Our father had crossed the line. But the evidence release required him to reveal why he was doing this, not simply prove that he could be cruel. His next slide gave us the answer. Monday's date appeared above an image of the Bennett Family Trust seal. As many of you know, he said, we have an important beneficiary meeting coming up. Financial responsibility matters, stability matters, credibility matters. He never actually said I plan to challenge the missing trust funds. He didn't have to. He was teaching everyone in the room to dismiss me before I ever spoke. That was the purpose of the divorce decree, the empty bank account, and the private text message. The humiliation wasn't entertainment, it was witness preparation. He clicked again. A gold certificate spun onto the screen. Family's most expensive mistake. My name was printed beneath it. An usher carried a framed copy toward the stage because my father had planned the moment carefully enough to include a physical prop. Come on, Claire, he called. Be a good sport. Let your sister have a memorable wedding. When an entire room accepts your pain as entertainment, are they still witnesses? Or have they become accomplices? I stood. The laughter faded as I walked between the tables. A few relatives reached toward me, maybe to comfort me, maybe to stop me. I kept walking. My father opened his arms as though he expected a playful hug. Instead, I took the framed certificate from the usher and held it beside my face so the cameras could see it. Is this the final version? I asked. He grinned. The truth doesn't need revisions. Good, I said. Stay close to the screen. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Then he recovered, lifted his champagne glass, and smiled at the crowd. There she is, he said, finally learning to laugh at herself. That was my mother's cue. Amanda stood halfway, accepted the microphone, and looked directly at me. Now they know who she really is, she said. The words landed exactly as they had rehearsed them. My father clicked to one final image. It showed me sitting alone at a bus station after my divorce. Across the photo, he had written, "Some people never become the person they promise to be." I placed the fake award on the podium, opened the hidden group chat, and saw 5 green circles beside 5 names. Nina was ready in the control booth. Lily had authorized the switch. Marcus had locked the wedding livestream recording. Evelyn had the certified evidence packet queued for release. Aunt Rebecca was watching from the trustees' table. My father leaned toward me and whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Don't make a scene. You'll only prove my point." I typed one word, "Begin." Then I pressed send. His laptop was still connected, but the venue's production system switched inputs. The screen went black. The music stopped with it. My father pressed his remote twice, then looked toward the control booth. A single white line appeared across the giant screen. Then 6 words filled the display. "This is not Claire's account balance." My father lunged toward his laptop, but changing the slides no longer changed the screen. Nina was running the secure feed from the control booth, exactly as Lily was authorized to approve under the venue contract. The same feed immediately appeared on the official wedding livestream because Marcus had instructed the videography team to preserve every toast. Nothing had been hacked. Nothing had been stolen. My father had brought a weapon onto a stage he didn't own. The bride had simply changed who controlled the lights. The first document filled the screen, a certified statement from the Bennett Family Trust. 19 withdrawals were highlighted in yellow, totaling $417,600. Every transaction carried my beneficiary identification code. Beside the statement, a transfer map appeared. The money moved from the trust into North Star Advisory. From there, it split into 3 destinations. My father's brokerage account, a loan tied to his country house, and a private corporate credit card used for travel. A small window opened in the corner of the screen. Evelyn appeared from her office, the trust agreement displayed behind her. "My name is Evelyn Shaw," she said, "and I represent the trust, not any individual family member." The documents being shown tonight were obtained directly from the financial institutions following a beneficiary's official request. Account numbers had been partially concealed from the public feed. Full certified copies had already been released to the trustees and authorized counsel at 8:42 p.m. My father grabbed the microphone. "Turn this off. Those records are fabricated." Evelyn never raised her voice. Instead, she enlarged the bank's certification stamp and the electronic delivery receipt. "These records can be challenged through legal counsel," she said. "They cannot be dismissed by shouting at a screen." Several guests slowly lowered their phones, suddenly realizing they were no longer watching a family argument. They were watching evidence. At Aunt Rebecca's table, my great-aunt opened the encrypted packet on her tablet. Her expression changed the moment she reached the approval forms. As co-trustee, her authorization was required for any beneficiary distribution exceeding $50,000. The forms displayed her name, but not her signature. A comparison appeared beside them. On one side was her genuine signature from the trust agreement. On the other was the imitation submitted through my father's office. "I never approved these," she said. The microphone near her table carried her words much farther than she intended. My father immediately pointed at me. "She had access. She knows our family systems. This is revenge from a bitter woman." I stepped beside the podium and rested my hand on the framed certificate he had given me. "Read the authentication log." The next slide displayed the digital records for the 3 documents bearing my name. Each one had been electronically signed from the same office network using a device registered to my father's executive assistant. The dates and time zones appeared beneath them. On one of those dates, I had been speaking at a design conference nearly 900 miles away. The conference invoice, hotel records, and a time-stamped photo of me on stage appeared beside the document. On another date, I had been in mediation with my divorce attorney. On the 3rd, my passport showed I was outside the country. My father changed tactics. I handled family paperwork for years. Claire gave me permission to manage those things. Evelyn immediately displayed the section of the trust requiring written authorization for every withdrawal. No blanket permission existed. Then another document filled the screen. An email recovered from the company's archived server. It was from my father to the family accountant. "Use Claire's distribution code. Her accounts already look chaotic, and Rebecca never checks the artist side. Move it before quarter close." The accountant had replied with a single sentence. "I need written beneficiary consent." My father's response appeared beneath it. "I'll handle the signatures." The room didn't erupt into chaos. It became strangely organized. People stopped whispering. They started reading. His business partners exchanged uneasy glances. One uncle opened his banking app. Another quietly asked Aunt Rebecca whether similar withdrawals had affected his side of the family. My mother remained seated, but her fingers tightened around the stem of her wine glass. She stared at the email as though she had never seen it before. That didn't make her innocent. It only meant my father had shared with her exactly as much of the plan as he needed her to perform. "This proves nothing about me humiliating you," he said. "You're mixing financial records with a joke because you can't stand being laughed at." "You brought up Monday's trust meeting during your joke," I replied. "You needed everyone in this room to believe I was irresponsible before I challenged these transfers. That's your interpretation. Then let them see yours." A new folder opened on the screen. Its label read, "Wedding Strategy." Inside were text messages exchanged between my father and my mother over the previous month. The first read, "Get me the divorce file and the old account screenshot." The second, "Make sure Lily's screen is large enough." The third, "After the presentation, say Claire has always rewritten history. We need the family laughing before she starts talking about the trust." Amanda covered her mouth. My father started toward the control booth. Marcus stepped into the aisle. He never touched him. "The bride authorized the feed," Marcus said calmly. "You will not interfere with it." Lily rose from the head table, still wearing her wedding gown. "This is my reception," she said. "Let it play." My father looked around the ballroom, searching for someone willing to overrule her. No one did. When a father calls documented theft family business, is he protecting the family? Or is he protecting the position that allows him to control it? The screen changed once more. A black video player appeared. Its timestamp showed a date from 8 days earlier. Beneath it was a label identifying the company's archived meeting system. My father had deleted the recording from his personal account, but the company's compliance software had preserved it automatically. Evelyn moved the cursor over the play button. For the first time that evening, my father didn't tell anyone to stop. Instead, he turned toward my mother. "Amanda," he whispered, "we need to leave." She didn't move. Evelyn pressed play. The recording opened with my father alone in his office, speaking with the family accountant over a video call. The date and the system-generated participant list remained visible across the top of the screen. He placed the trust statements on his desk. "The missing distributions become a problem only if Claire sounds credible," he said. "By Monday she won't." The accountant frowned. "What does a wedding have to do with financial records?" My father laughed. "Because people remember how they felt before they remember what they read. If 200 relatives see her as divorced, broke, and unstable, every document she presents afterward will look like retaliation." A door opened in the recording. My mother walked in carrying the same jewelry box she had brought into the bridal suite. "Did you take Lily's childhood photos out of the presentation?" she asked. "Mostly," he answered. "This isn't about Lily. It's about Claire." Amanda sat down across from him. "She'll never forgive us." "She already avoids us," he replied. "What exactly are we losing?" The guests in the ballroom reacted more strongly to that sentence than they had to the bank records. My mother's shoulders slowly folded inward. On the screen, she handed him my private divorce papers and repeated the line she had agreed to say into the microphone. "Now they know who she really is." He corrected her timing. "Wait until the laughter peaks." The accountant tried one more time. "Richard, the forged approvals are a separate issue. If the bank audits the trust, Amanda's signatures are on the internal reimbursement forms." My mother, standing in the ballroom, turned sharply toward my father. In the recording, he leaned back in his chair and answered without hesitation. "Then Amanda explains them. She wanted the renovations. She signed whatever I put in front of her." "If someone has to look careless," my father said, "it won't be me." The video froze on my mother's face the instant she realized the plan had always included sacrificing her. She stood so quickly that her chair crashed backward. "You told me those forms were routine," she said. My father reached for her arm. She stepped away. "Not here," he muttered. "You chose here," she replied. It was the first honest sentence she had spoken all evening, but honesty that arrives only after exposure is not the same as courage. I didn't rush to comfort her. She had handed over my divorce papers, my private messages, and the line that made the room laugh. Discovering that she was disposable didn't erase the fact that she had helped load the weapon. The recording continued. My father told the accountant that once Monday's meeting was over, he would refinance the missing money and quietly restore part of it before anyone noticed. He called Aunt Rebecca too sentimental to audit family finances. He described his business partners as men who preferred a confident lie over an embarrassing truth. One of those partners, seated near the giant screen, stood up and quietly walked away from my father's table. A second followed. At the trustees' table, Aunt Rebecca closed the evidence packet and reached for the microphone. "Under Section 9 of Eleanor Bennett's trust, I am suspending Richard Bennett's transaction authority pending an independent audit." She looked toward Evelyn. "Evelyn, send the notice." My father let out a loud, nervous laugh. "You can't suspend me during a wedding." "The trust does not recognize weddings as immunity," Aunt Rebecca replied. Evelyn confirmed that the notice had already been electronically signed and delivered to the bank. A timestamp appeared on the screen. That secure release triggered the next step we had prepared. A bank compliance acknowledgement appeared, confirming that all outgoing transfers from the trust had been temporarily restricted while the authorization dispute was under review. It wasn't a criminal judgment. Evelyn made that clear. But it was something even more immediate to my father. He had lost access. His phone began vibrating. He looked at one notification, then another. The confidence he had carried all evening disappeared. Lily stepped down from the head table and stopped beside me. "Did you use my beneficiary account for any of this?" she asked. He answered with the same tone he always used whenever facts became dangerous. "You don't understand how complicated family finances are." Nina advanced the presentation to another statement. 3 payments for the wedding venue were listed in the family ledger as Richard Bennett, gift to Lily. But the certified bank records showed the payments had actually come from Lily's own beneficiary account. Our father had used her money while taking credit for his generosity. Marcus's parents leaned closer, reading every figure on the screen. Without saying a word, Lily removed the jeweled bracelet our father had given her that morning. She set it gently on the table in front of him. "Was this already mine too?" she asked. He didn't answer. Amanda slowly lowered herself back into her chair, staring at the reimbursement forms bearing her own signature. My father sat down even more slowly, as though his legs had forgotten how to support him. That was the moment everyone later described as the moment they collapsed. Neither of them fainted. Neither of them fell to the floor. They collapsed inside the identities they had spent years performing. The generous father, the loyal mother, the successful couple who controlled everyone else's reputation. The screen hadn't simply contradicted them. It had taken away the audience they needed to keep believing the performance. Then Evelyn received a new email. She looked directly into the camera. "The board secretary for the family company has reviewed the preliminary evidence packet," she announced. 3 directors are present in this room. They are requesting emergency written consent." My father slowly lifted his head. Losing the trust was one thing. Losing the company that carried his name was something he had never imagined could begin before the wedding cake had even been cut. He stood again. This time, he no longer had the microphone. "The company is mine," he said. Uncle Paul, the board secretary, remained seated as he opened the resolution Evelyn had sent. "You founded it," he answered calmly. "You do not own every voting share. 62% of Bennett Development belong to the family trust and 3 related family holdings. For years, my father had controlled those votes because everyone had mistaken confidence for accountability. Aunt Rebecca's suspension immediately removed his authority to vote the trust's shares until the audit was complete. Uncle Paul read the proposed resolution aloud. Administrative leave, immediate preservation of all financial records, surrender of company devices, temporary appointment of an independent operations officer. The resolution required 3 director signatures. Uncle Paul signed first. A cousin who managed one of the company's regional divisions signed second. The third director was one of the business partners my father had mocked in the archived recording. He looked once at the frozen image of himself on the giant screen. Then he signed without saying a word. My father's phone rang. The caller ID displayed, General Counsel. He rejected the call. Seconds later, another notification appeared. His executive access had been disabled. The remote control application on his tablet logged him out. His company email disappeared from the screen. For years, he had punished people by taking away access to money, access to invitations, access to information, access to approval. Now the same system worked in the opposite direction. For the first time, he learned how small a man could look when no system answered to him anymore. "You planned all of this at your sister's wedding," he said, staring at me. "You wanted to destroy me in front of everyone." "I planned a private legal response," I answered. "You chose the giant screen." He turned toward Lily. "I paid for this day." She silently pointed to the statement proving that the venue deposits had come from her own trust account. Marcus added, "Lily and I paid every remaining vendor ourselves." My father tried one last threat. "Then I'll cancel your honeymoon reservations." Marcus smiled and held up his phone. "They're in our names." Every failed attempt stripped away another piece of the authority my father had mistaken for love. Amanda finally stepped toward me. She started to apologize. I stopped her before she could finish. "Not tonight." Her face tightened. "I didn't know about all the money." "You knew about the presentation." "I thought he was teaching you humility." "You gave him a private message I sent you because I was scared." She lowered her eyes. There wasn't a single sentence that could transform participation into innocence. I told her that any future contact would go through a counselor or an attorney until she could explain her choices without blaming all of them on my father. She nodded. But I could see she had expected my father's betrayal to buy her instant forgiveness. It didn't. Lily took the microphone and addressed the guests. She didn't apologize for the truth. She apologized that her wedding had been turned into a stage for cruelty and financial deception. Then she canceled the father-daughter dance. "The next dance," she said, "will be for the people who protected this marriage instead of using it." She asked our father to leave the reception after surrendering his company laptop to Uncle Paul. Venue security never touched him. They simply stood near the exit while everyone he had expected to command watched him decide whether he would cooperate. He looked toward his brothers. Neither of them moved. He looked toward his business partners. One had already forwarded the archived recording to legal counsel. He looked toward Amanda. She slipped off her wedding ring, placed it beside Lily's bracelet, and stepped away from him. Finally, he looked at me. "What do you want?" For the first time all evening, the question sounded almost sincere. He had run out of threats. "Consequences," I said. "Repay every dollar. Correct every lie you told about me. Give up control of the trust and the company while the audit continues. Do not contact Lily or me unless we invite it. And if I refuse? Then the documents move forward without your cooperation." He stared at the giant screen that had begun the evening by displaying the lowest balance my bank account had ever held. Now it showed the signed resolution placing him on administrative leave. "You destroyed this family," he said. "No," I answered. "I stopped you from billing us for the damage." He handed Uncle Paul the laptop and walked toward the ballroom doors. No one applauded. Applause would have turned it into another performance. The silence was a verdict he couldn't edit. After he left, Nina returned the giant screen to Lily and Marcus's wedding photographs. The cake was cut. The band began to play. The next dance belonged to Lily, Marcus, Aunt Rebecca, and everyone who had chosen evidence over comfort. Near midnight, I believed the worst was finally behind us. The following morning, Evelyn sent me a message that proved the wedding had exposed only the first layer. Her email contained the schedule for a second audit and one sentence. We found another beneficiary code. It belonged to Lily. Over the next 3 weeks, independent reviewers uncovered another $96,000 in withdrawals from her account, along with smaller transfers taken from a medical reserve established for my mother. My father had shifted money between categories so often that each shortage appeared temporary when viewed in isolation. Together, they revealed a system. North Star Advisory returned $182,000 after its owner retained legal counsel and agreed to cooperate. The bank froze the remaining disputed assets. Bennett Development's board formally removed my father as chairman and required him to surrender his office while the investigation continued. Eventually, he signed a restitution agreement that forced him to sell the country house he had refinanced with trust money. The company didn't collapse. That had been another lie he had taught us. He wanted us to believe that removing him would destroy everything he had built. It didn't. Operations continued under an independent manager. Employees kept their jobs. The first clean financial report in years was released without his photograph on the cover. My mother moved into Aunt Rebecca's guest room and began the slow, painful work of explaining what she had done. She admitted that she had given my father my private documents. She admitted that she had helped rehearse the presentation. She admitted that she had repeated stories about my supposed reckless spending because agreeing with my father had made her own life easier. She also admitted that protecting her own comfort had mattered more than protecting me. I didn't call that redemption. I called it a beginning. One she would have to continue without expecting access to me as a reward. We met with a counselor twice. During the third session, she asked when I would forgive her. I told her forgiveness wasn't a deadline she could put on my calendar. Lily supported that boundary. Her marriage began with an ugly public truth. But it didn't remain trapped there. She and Marcus kept the wedding video, removed my father's humiliating presentation, and preserved the evidence feed for legal counsel. In their final wedding album, my favorite photograph showed Lily and me standing together after the giant screen had gone dark. Neither of us was smiling for anyone else's approval. The recovered trust money was placed under professional management. My share funded the art studio my father had dismissed as a failed hobby. It also established a small annual grant in our grandmother Eleanor Bennett's name for women rebuilding their careers after financial hardship. 6 months later, my studio signed its largest museum contract. I never sent my father the announcement. My success no longer needed to exist as an argument against his opinion. He sent one letter through Evelyn. In it, he wrote that no parent deserved to be humiliated in front of an entire family. I read the sentence twice. Then I asked Evelyn to return the letter with the fake award he had created for me. On the back, I wrote, "Public truth feels cruel only after public lies have become comfortable." The final restitution meeting took place without a giant screen, champagne, or relatives waiting to laugh. My father looked older, but he didn't look transformed. He signed the last transfer document and looked up at me. "Has taking everything from me made you happy?" "I didn't take your family," I answered. "They simply stopped lending you their silence." He asked whether we could start over. I told him that starting over required accountability without an audience. He hadn't shown me that yet. Then I stood up and walked away. Revenge wasn't watching him suffer. It was watching the systems he had used against us continue without him. It was my sister controlling her own money. It was my mother facing the consequences of her complicity. It was every relative who laughed at the first slide, remembering what appeared on the last one. My father chose a giant screen to define me as divorced, broke, and a failure. Instead, it became the place where his authority ended in full view of the people who had spent years helping him protect it. If someone spent years turning your pain into entertainment, would exposing the truth be revenge? Or the first honest thing you ever did? Thank you for watching this story from beginning to end. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment, education, and storytelling purposes. We hope it reminds you that you are allowed to stop fighting for people who make every act of love and care feel one-sided. Love, friendship, and family should never feel like relationships where only one person is expected to keep giving.